Welcome back to Creep, the channel where the line between the real world and the supernatural is razor thin, and we dive deep into the terrifying and unexplainable. I'm your host, and tonight we have something truly chilling for you. It's about a time when the clock strikes 3 a.m., the hour of darkness, a time when many believe the veil between our world and the other side thins. There's something about 3 a.m. that has always fascinated me. The hour when most of the world is fast asleep and the silence is almost deafening. It's said to be the witching hour, a time when the paranormal realm is at its peak. But what happens when you're awake at 3 a.m. and something or someone appears that just shouldn't be there? Let me tell you about a night I'll never forget. It was a cold winter night in 2016, and I had just returned home from a late shift at work. I lived alone in a small apartment on the outskirts of town. The kind of place that's perfect for some peace and quiet. Nothing fancy, but cozy enough. The night was silent, except for the occasional creak of the building settling. As I pulled the covers over my tired body, I glanced at the clock on my nightstand. It was 2:57 a.m. I was exhausted, and I had no intention of staying awake for long. But it was around this time that I began to feel uncomfortable. I chalked it up to exhaustion. But a sense of unease washed over me, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I turned over in bed, tried to settle in. My mind wandered as I stared at the dimly lit room. The soft glow from the streetlights outside barely pierced through the blinds, casting shadows that danced along the walls. Suddenly, the temperature in the room dropped. I mean, it wasn't just a little cooler. It felt like someone had opened a freezer door. I pulled the blankets tighter around me, but the chill didn't go away. It was 3:01 a.m. now, and that's when I saw it. At the foot of my bed, standing completely still, was a shadow, a figure. I couldn't make out any details, just a dark silhouette, unmoving. My heart raced as I stared at it. I tried to convince myself it was just the shadows from the streetlights, or maybe my eyes playing tricks on me. But this figure was different. It wasn't a trick of light. This was something solid, something that felt so real, it made my blood run cold. I blinked a few times, hoping it would disappear, but it didn't. It stood there as still as stone, just watching me. I could feel its presence, heavy and oppressive. I tried to scream, but my voice caught in my throat. It felt like I was paralyzed, unable to move, unable to speak. I didn't dare look away from it, but in my panic, I turned my head ever so slightly, as if to look at my phone to check the time again. When I turned back, it was gone. I sat up in bed, heart pounding in my chest. The room was silent again, but that coldness, it lingered. The hair on the back of my neck stood up as I pulled my phone from the nightstand and checked the time. It was still 3:04 a.m. I wasn't sure if I had imagined it or if the figure was real, but the sensation that something was wrong didn't fade. For the next few weeks, every night when I went to sleep, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me from the foot of my bed. I could never bring myself to look over there again. Every night, I would sleep with the covers pulled up tightly over my head, trying to block out the fear that gnawed at me. It wasn't until a few months later that I moved out of that apartment. I couldn't stay there any longer, not with the haunting memories of that night and the shadows I couldn't explain. To this day, I don't know if it was a ghost, a trick of my mind, or something else entirely. But I know one thing for sure, I will never forget that cold, oppressive feeling of having something or someone standing at the foot of my bed at 3 a.m. I've always been a skeptic when it comes to paranormal experiences. I never really believed in ghosts, hauntings, or anything that couldn't be explained away by science. But that all changed one night in 2017 when I experienced something that left me questioning everything I thought I knew about the supernatural. It was a typical Friday night, and I was staying at my aunt's house in a quiet, suburban neighborhood. She was out of town visiting family, so I had the place to myself for the weekend. I was 21 at the time, and to be honest, I felt pretty safe. The house was old, sure, but it had that cozy, lived-in feel. Nothing about it screamed haunted. After a long day of working and running errands, I decided to unwind with a nice warm bath. The bathroom was small, with an old-fashioned mirror above the sink and an outdated tub. The mirror was positioned in such a way that if you were standing in front of it, you could see the entire bathroom, even the door that led into the hallway behind you. As I soaked in the warm water, I started to notice something strange. The reflection in the mirror, nothing about it felt quite right. The bathroom seemed a little darker than usual, even though the lights were on. I shrugged it off, blaming it on the flickering light above the mirror. But then I saw her. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught a glimpse of movement in the reflection. I thought it was just a trick of the light, but as I turned my head, I saw it again, a shadowy figure standing in the hallway behind me. It was a woman, but she wasn't standing normally. She was hunched, almost as if she were crouching down. Her long, dark hair hung over her face, obscuring any features, and her hands were pressed against the wall, as though she was trying to crawl through it. I froze. I thought it was a trick of my eyes, so I blinked a few times and turned to look directly at the hallway behind me. But when I did, the hallway was empty. I quickly turned back to the mirror, heart pounding in my chest. The woman was still there, now closer, her face slightly more visible. She had hollow, sunken eyes that seemed to glow in the dim light. I could feel the hairs on the back of my neck standing up as I stared at her. I tried to call out, but no sound came from my mouth. I felt paralyzed. The figure didn't move. It just stared at me with those dark, lifeless eyes. Her presence was suffocating, and a cold chill settled over me, despite the warm water in the tub. I tried to stand up, but my body wouldn't cooperate. Everything seemed to be moving in slow motion. And then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the woman in the mirror vanished. I blinked again and she was gone. The bathroom was once again bathed in light, and everything seemed normal. No figure, no woman, just me, alone in the room. I was breathing heavily at this point, trying to calm myself. I quickly got out of the bath, not bothering to dry off, and rushed to the hallway to check if anyone had broken into the house. There was no one there, no sign of anything unusual. My heart was still racing as I made my way to the kitchen and grabbed a glass of water to steady myself. But the feeling of unease lingered. Later that night, after I convinced myself that it was just a figment of my imagination, I tried to go to bed. I couldn't stop thinking about what had happened in the bathroom. I kept replaying the image of that woman in my mind, the hollow eyes, the unnatural crouching posture. At exactly 3 a.m., I was jolted awake by the sound of something shifting in the hallway. My eyes snapped open, and I immediately felt that same dread wash over me. I tried to ignore it, thinking it was just my imagination playing tricks on me. But then I heard it again, a soft, shuffling noise, followed by what sounded like someone whisper my name. I couldn't move. I just lay there, frozen, listening to the sounds coming from the hallway. The whispers grew louder, more distinct. They weren't words I could understand, but the tone was menacing. The same cold chill from earlier filled the room, and I could feel the oppressive weight of something or someone just beyond my bedroom door. Eventually, the whispers stopped and the silence returned. I lay there, wide-eyed and terrified, but I didn't dare get out of bed. I kept telling myself that I was imagining things, that it was all in my head. But the fear gnawed at me, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me. The next morning, I tried to brush it off as a nightmare, but I couldn't explain the strange events of the previous night. When I went into the bathroom, I found something I hadn't noticed before, a small, faint mark on the bathroom mirror, almost like a handprint smeared along the glass. I never stayed in that house again. This one takes place back in 2015, when I was living in an old duplex in the heart of New Orleans. The city is known for its haunted history, and I should have known better than to rent a place that was so old and had such a creepy vibe. But I was young, carefree, and desperate to find an affordable apartment. The duplex was small but charming, 2 stories, with a basement that was locked and never mentioned by the landlord. When I first moved in, I was told that the basement had been sealed off for safety reasons, but they didn't provide any further details. I shrugged it off as an old house quirk. I wasn't really one for paranormal beliefs, and everything seemed fine during the day. It was at night, though, when things started to get weird. I'll never forget the first time I heard the voice. It was 3 a.m., and I had just finished up some late-night work on my laptop. I was about to go to bed when I heard it, a faint whispering from the basement. At first, I thought it was just a house settling, but the voice was clear enough to send a chill down my spine. It sounded like a woman, softly calling my name. Sarah? I froze. I wasn't sure if I had imagined it, so I sat still, holding my breath, listening carefully. There was again a soft, breathy voice calling me by name. Sarah, come down. My heart started to race. Who could be in the basement? I had never even been inside. I stood up and walked to the kitchen, where I could hear it more clearly. The voice was coming from the small door in the corner that led down to the basement. The house was old, and that door had never been open as long as I had lived there. I tried to tell myself it was nothing, just the wind, maybe some pipes. But there was something unsettling in that voice. It wasn't just a random sound. It was intentional. It felt like it knew me, like it was inviting me to something. I spent the next few nights trying to ignore it, but it kept happening. Every time the clock struck 3 a.m., I would hear that voice, soft and insistent. It wasn't just calling my name anymore. It started saying things like, "Come to me, Sarah. I'm waiting." The whispering never stopped for hours. Sometimes it would be just one voice, and other times it would feel like there were multiple voices layered over each other. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't concentrate. It was like the house was alive with these eerie whispers, and it was driving me insane. Finally, one night, after hearing it for what felt like the 100th time, I decided to confront it. I wasn't sure why. I just felt like I had to know what it was. I grabbed a flashlight and headed to the basement door. As I approached, the air grew heavier, colder, and I could feel the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I hesitated, but then I opened the door. The basement stairs were narrow, and the smell of musty, damp air hit me immediately. The stairs creaked under my weight as I slowly descended into the dark. I shined the flashlight around, but there was nothing, just old boxes, old furniture, and empty spaces. Nothing seemed out of place. The voice had stopped, but the sense of unease only grew stronger as I moved deeper into the basement. And then I heard it again, the whispering. "Sarah, I'm down here." The voice was coming from somewhere in the far corner. My heart pounded in my chest as I cautiously walked toward the sound. I shone the flashlight on the wall where the voice seemed to be coming from, but there was nothing there. The wall was solid. I tried to call out, but my voice faltered. My body was shaking uncontrollably. Then, as if something in the darkness was pulling me closer, I stepped forward, my foot sinking into something soft. I looked down and saw that I was standing on something wet. I flashed my light down and saw what I thought was a puddle of water on the floor. But as I stepped back, I realized it wasn't water. It was blood, thick, dark blood, spreading across the floor like it had been there for days, maybe weeks. I looked up, and there it was, etched into the wall in front of me, words written in the blood. The message read, "You shouldn't have come." I turned around to run, but as I did, I saw something that made my blood run cold. The door to the basement had been shut. It wasn't just closed. It was locked from the outside. I screamed, banging on the door, shouting for help, but no one answered. The whispers grew louder, surrounding me from every direction. And then, just as suddenly as it had started, everything went quiet. The blood on the floor vanished. The whispers stopped, and the door swung open. I don't remember how I got out, But somehow, I found myself back upstairs, gasping for air. I packed my bags that night and left the apartment for good. To this day, I have no idea who or what was down there. I've never told anyone about what happened because I'm not sure they believe me. But I will never, ever forget the voice in the basement, the blood, and the warning scrawled on the wall. Whatever it was, it wanted something from me, and it's still out there. As we close out tonight's chilling episode, I want to thank you for joining us as we explore the darkest corners of the supernatural world. The stories we've shared today, though terrifying, serve as a reminder that sometimes the scariest things don't come from what we can see, but from what we can hear, what we can feel, and the things that stay with us long after we think the night has ended. If these tales left you with goosebumps and wondering what's lurking in the shadows, be sure to subscribe to Creep and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next spine-chilling adventure. We got more horrifying encounters, real ghost experiences, and unsolved mysteries coming your way. You won't want to miss a single moment. But until then, remember, when the clock strikes 3 a.m. and the silence feels just a little too heavy, don't be too quick to dismiss the whispers you hear. They might be closer than you think. Sleep tight or not. Good night, and see you in the next one.